Ladies and gentlemen, ATDF Everything in That Shelf presentation. You're now rocking with TDF Everything. Spoiled Rotten.
Spoiler alert.
Welcome back, everybody.
Hey.
It's me, Daniel,
And this is Ben
on Spoiled Rotten.
on that shelf.
Boom. We are here. We are spoiling Black Adam.
After 8 years of the
I feel like
casting of
it's-
The Rock,
I think
we
it's
get
been
to
longer
spoil it.
than that.
Has it been? I thought
Yeah.
it was only 8, but whatever.
Yeah. I mean, apparently he's been talking about this for a while.
He has been talking about. Well, I mean, we'll get into it.
But yeah, this is another DC movie. We've been really Marvel heavy for the last bit, so
Yeah,
uh,
but not our fault because DC has not been pumping out stuff. We
Yeah.
have been doing every DC property.
well, it's not apology. I'm just saying, like, oh yeah,
We are
Let's,
not a Marvel focused
we'll see
podcast
something
for
else.
sure.
So yeah, I mean, if people haven't seen the movie or just need a reminder,
Mhm.
Black Adam is a movie about the nation of Kahndaq,
Yeah, Kahndaq.
which is obviously fictional, the same way Gotham is fictional, and there's other DC countries and cities that are fictional. And this is like it's one of the first civilizations, basically.
Yeah.
And a king gets power hungry, and the people want to rebel by using Jay-Z's Rockefeller sign, which I found very interesting.
I love that. I love all
and
the hip hop references in this, man.
So
It was
basically, out of that comes Teth Adam, who becomes
the champion.
We'll
as we're
see
told.
if he is in fact the champion everyone remembers. And Kahndaq, he goes away. He gets his powers the same way Shazam gets his powers. If you remember that, we even get Jaimon Hansu back. And the movie deals with the occupation of Kahndaq and the people of Kahndaq hoping that they could get a hero the same way America has heroes, and the American heroes coming over being like, we know what's best.
Yeah.
So there is a nugget of interest there.
Yes.
I don't know if the movie ever really wanted to fully engage with it, but it did.
True.
It's there.
Yeah.
So that's good. What did you think of the movie?
I felt the exact that element of like occupation of Kahndaq was really, really surprising that they put that in there. It was really obviously disappointing that they abandoned everything in the third act to like discuss it and all that kind of stuff. But that wasn't obviously what the movie's about. They're just layering in there something superficial, but even good enough to be like, hey, there's a good element to this movie about what the Justice Society is doing and what the people of Kahndaq and the professor that takes that lead role really more than like we're just following her story throughout the whole thing, which is fascinating. It absolutely is. It's just wonderful. I really like that, but of course, yeah, a little disappointed that they dive deep in that, but it's a comic book movie. What we are that I was like, yeah,
I would say that there are other comic book movies specifically from DC, like Suicide Squad, that actually specifically went into, America goes around and fucks with people and then tries to screw them over when they've got whatever they need out of them pretty effectively. So
yeah, this one did it less effectively.
I don't know if
sure,
but it's a comic book movie is a very good thing because this studio has actually done this well.
Yeah. So what I mean by that is it's the first pillar of this franchise. So being that Suicide Squad 1, Suicide Squad 2 gets to actually do something very, very different with a purpose and learn from that, right? And of course, the whole DC is trying to do that. They're trying to learn.
I would disagree with that because none of this is like building off of anything really.
Well,
like,
that's true.
This is all, you can just do what you want, right?
Yeah. So it's just like, hey, the word Shazam's the same. That's about it. And we need
Digimon
Hansu. That's about
you
it.
actually need to like. I would say if you hadn't seen Shazam, because that movie actually labors on how people get their powers and like what Jaimon Hansu's character, like he actually like feels bad about what happened. I don't think if you hadn't seen Shazam that the way they explain it in this movie would suffice. I think it is like it's tied like so it sounds like I'm talking out of both sides of my mouth, but what I'm saying is the same way Suicide Squad
Mhm.
was like, you get the idea of this, right? Because you saw the first one, and even
Right.
if you didn't, here's what we're doing. And I think Suicide Squad is a better movie, or
Yes.
the Suicide Squad is a better movie, but this they are still trying, they're still in conversation with their movies, not to the extent of like uh not to both of them are in conversation with the movies that came before them, not to the extent of like, if you haven't seen this you'll be completely lost, but they use them as shorthand so that they can be like, all right, and like let's keep going to the stuff we actually want to do.
Right.
And so I think that, to your point, it is still building off of Shazam, but it shouldn't feel like, oh well, this is the first time we're getting to do this, because it's not the first time the studio is making a superhero movie. It's not even the first time the studio is dealing with these specific powers and this like mythos.
Which is very, very fair. I mean, you're right. If you didn't watch Shazam, you wouldn't get that full on intricacy of it. Um, but that first act moves on so fast. It's like you're absolutely right, because that is one of my complaints, is that that first little bit with the voiceover and all that kind of stuff, it moves so fast that
I mean, it's
yeah,
also
I'm glad Shazam was there.
purposefully vague,
Yes,
because
and
I
not
don't
successfully,
I don't think it's
unsuccessfully,
I don't
purposely
think
vague.
it's a successful like, aha, it was his son that was the actual champion, because like,
It was in the trailers. Like,
well,
was...
yeah, there was that thing where I'm like, well, I mean, he said it was his son, and then his son, but like, even without that,
yeah,
I think her character's name is Adriana.
yes,
I she's like mad at Black Adam. She's like, "Oh, you're not even. That's not you." And so I'm like, I mean, he never said he was. He says it later in that scene, like, "Well, I never said I was anything." But I'm just
yeah,
like, yeah, the movie is trying to make it seem like he's trying to pull one over on people when his whole thing is, "Leave me alone. I don't care."
yeah. I don't get it. I'm like, okay.
She's like mad at him, and I'm like, I don't understand why she is mad at him.
Well,
Like,
I can understand. I mean, she and a lot of my assumption, the people of Kahndaq are putting a lot of faith into the champion,
mhm.
thinking that the original champion, the son, who is pure of heart, who got the powers originally, or like whatever, was the protector of Kahndaq. And then little did they know that the powers were because that was a scene that like not a lot of people in Kahndaq could have seen or understood, and then like transferred to him, and they're
Yeah,
like,
but why
oh
would you
yeah,
be mad that you just didn't know the
well,
whole
because
story? Like, he
the
didn't come up and be like, "Yeah, I'm the champion." He specifically kept saying, "I'm not the champion."
right, and I guess okay, so this is where the Hawkman kind of thing comes in, where he's like, he reveals we have access to ancient texts that give us more information. So I just
Mhm.
want to like meet it that way, where it's like, okay, Amanda Waller and crew, they had, through colonization, you have to assume that they stole these artifacts and all that kind of stuff, interpret them, and then be
Mhm.
like, oh, we identify all these kind of risks and all that. So that's where I'm getting it from, where she's mad, is because I'm thinking that there's obviously information that she didn't have, to be like, oh, there was actually two champions, but one was pure, like that kind of thing. So
But that's
she,
not his problem. So I don't
of course, it's
understand what
not
you're
his
talking about.
problem.
Like,
I,
she's like,
I totally get it, but I
so
get
what?
why she's mad. Like
No,
that's why
what I'm
she's
saying is, I don't
mad.
get why she's mad at him, because that makes no sense.
Well, I mean, like it. You're right. I'm trying to
And even
make sense of that
more,
emotion.
she read something that right away when you read it feels like, don't let this guy out. He's in prison. Not, here lies our champion. Like, it's literally
Yeah,
like, do not wake this guy up. He's fucking terrible. Get
yeah,
like, we need to keep him here. Don't be an idiot. And she's like, I had to let him out because
yeah,
like I had to bring him back to life. And then she's like, so what I was reading on that was your prison, not your tomb. Like, again, he never said that it wasn't, and also it pretty clear, like, it this is what I mean by like, if she's a smart character, you're supposed to like, she has a lot of good points where she's talking to the superheroes and she's like,
yes,
I know the most here, you can't come in here and tell me
hmm,
you know more.
yeah,
And so if that's her thing, and she's like reading between the lines of stuff and really immersed in
hmm,
this, I feel like that kind of wording would let you believe like, hey, I don't think this is a tomb.
right.
I think people were like, we gotta like keep this guy out of here.
So in all fairness, my question to you is: do you think that they were only looking for the crown, or do you think they were actually looking for Black Adam?
What do
Because
you
that
mean?
that was my question, right? It seemed like the whole thing was all about getting the crown, for everyone involved. And then she read the thing and was like, oh my God, look at all these artifacts. I read this thing. And then she said Shazam. So my question to you was, do you think that they were looking for the crown initially and then like, oops?
Yeah, I don't think there's any ambiguity about that.
Right. So they were okay. Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
I
they
think
weren't
it's
trying
a very
to
straightforward. Yeah. She even says the only reason I did this was because I was going to get killed if I didn't like make a move.
Yeah. Okay. Fair. Yeah.
Her whole thing is they are days away from finding this crown. It's going to screw everybody over. Yeah. We need to get it and move it out.
Yeah.
The other Jafar from Aladdin was like, well, I want it because I'm a descendant of this guy and I want to be the bad guy.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, I don't think there is any ambiguity about people's motivation.
Fair enough. Fair enough. The thing that bothered me about that scene was like, oh, they just drove into that mountain that was this tomb. That it didn't seem like they needed to like find the secret entrance or anything like that. It wasn't like really hidden very, very well. I took bother to that. Like, why did it seemed like they were the only ones that knew about this place? It was weird.
I think I think the dialogue was making it seem like she has an idea of where it is, and she knows that all this time has been leading to them zeroing in on where it is, so they just need to get there before Intergang.
Right. Mm-hmm.
I don't think it was more like this thing is like you need the sun to hit at a very specific time so that you can see the entrance. It's just, I think she was just like, hey, look, by process of elimination, there's only so many places this thing could be, and I'm pretty sure they're about to like find it.
Yeah,
based on the years of them looking for it.
That's fair. I just feel like it's a little disappointing to me that the wizards that would trap Black Adam wouldn't do a better job of concealing the actual tomb and like actually wrote the instructions on how to release him on the tomb. That was weird to me. I'm like, why would you, if this is the magic that binds Black Adam here and you're trying to trap him, why would you put the instructions on the actual tomb? It doesn't make sense.
Don't say Shazam.
Don't say Shazam. Like, just speak his name and he'll come back. And like, why? That's
bad.
Yeah, that's bad. That's a dumb plan. It's just not, it's not good from the Wizards. They didn't have that thought out. But either way.
No, they did not.
Yeah.
I think, there's motivations are, I guess that's what I'm getting at. Overall, the motivations of people, while not ambiguous, don't always seem like they're in their best interest.
It's true.
Adriana and her brother, that was another scene. I know this is nitpicking, but at one point when Intergang shows up in the tomb and they're like, do this to save your brother. I'm like, why the hell do they know that's her brother? Yeah. Like what conversation happened where they're like, well, I mean, we're gonna get your wife, and he's like, no, that's my sister. Like, okay, we'll use that information later.
We'll use that information differently. I mean, it could have been him being like, don't kill me, my sister's in there, like just giving up a little bit of, but you're right. It's like, how did you know it? I'm more pissed off about the instructions on a tomb than that part for sure. But it was dumb. It was dumb.
So basically, what I think is interesting about the movie is Black Adam or Teth Adam never is like, you know what, maybe I should be nicer. Yeah. I think his whole thing is like, my change will be what I do before I kill someone. Like, I'm going to kill people. That is the effective way. But like, maybe I should say something funny before I do it, or something cool before I do it.
Yeah.
And I'm actually happy that the movie never lands on, well, don't do that. That's not nice. And I'm not saying it is the right way to be, but I think it is more interesting to have a character in the universe that's like, I don't care what you say. Killing people is the most effective, and that he has supporters. That the colonized country isn't like, well, yeah, we ought to be nice, and like they're like, no, look what would happen. Look what happened ever since you went away. Like, we need people to fuck off, and like, this is the answer.
Yeah, look at the like, how many years did they say it was been occupied by? Like, but it's been in oppression and for like
different countries over different times,
different countries, different regimes, different whatever. But the point is, it's the country of Kahndaq's been oppressed for a very, very long time, and literally no one has freed them, right? Like
Yeah.
she makes the point of saying, like, Justice Society of America is like, where were you until now? Like,
Mhm.
hey, like you didn't show up when we needed help, and now that we have someone that actually is helping, you're jealous of it, and you need to control it and all that kind of shit. Which I'm like, yeah, I agree with her on that until the
Yeah.
part where she's like, oh, you didn't realize that you're cheering on the wrong champion. Like you thought it was the Sun, and then now there's
I mean,
the
that
switch.
part is just a stupid
That's
plot
stupid.
contrivance. I'm with her every step of the way, especially when the Hawkman was like, like, you got to change our ways. And she's like, no, absolutely not. Like,
Yeah.
the reason that he is like effective is because he does the stuff you guys aren't willing to do.
It's true.
It's
kind of like the whole Batman argument, right? It's
yeah,
like if you
Red Hood being like,
yeah,
we could have saved so many lives
yes,
if you had just killed these people.
Yeah, and who was it too? Red Hood also being like, if you had just killed Joker, I wouldn't be like this, right? And I'm like, yeah, there's a point to that. Like, is there a point where people are just so far gone where there's nothing but then?
Well, I mean, to be fair, I'm not saying I agree with that ideology of like you just should kill people. That's it. Like draw.
Oh no, I don't agree with that.
What I'm saying is it makes it more interesting when you have characters like it's what I liked about Daredevil season 2 when you have the Punisher there who's like, no, you have to deal with it this way, and it doesn't mean that I'm like, so yeah, good Daredevil, you change that way, but as we mentioned, like Red Hood challenging Batman, Punisher challenging Daredevil, like you can't like having that voice there to really push your hero to the limits and see like if they're really about their life, like is more interesting to watch than to have it not challenged or to have it just be like, well, yeah, that's the good guy and that's the bad guy. I agree. I actually do think that's more interesting. And I think up until a certain point, it is interesting that the people who you generally would have been following, the Justice Society, are just like people along for the ride in this. Like you're not seeing it from their point of view, really.
Right.
Like you can see that they've got friendships and like stuff is budding, but it isn't about them. And I actually think that more than Batman versus Superman, they show that like they show the JSA being in the wrong in a better way than they did for Batman in Batman versus Superman.
I agree with that. I completely agree with that. It was impressive to me how the movie actually established the Justice Society of America, but didn't overshine the actual stuff that was actually happening in Kahndaq. That was really cool to me.
Yeah, I mean, they only really had Dr. Fate as a character who could possibly outshine anybody, but
correct.
I think they have the right selection of characters to be like, yeah, there's a ceiling to how interesting Hawkman can be, and that's fine. Like for this movie, that's fine for this one. But yeah, I think that is the positives of the movie. I think is that they had this interesting idea of, well, what happens when this, and I feel like we're seeing that now as people are mobile. I mean, not to get too real, but like as people are mobilizing to go into Haiti right now, like Canada and the States, and you like just that conversation around like, what the hell are you doing? Like, leave them alone. This like if you didn't care before, like, what are you doing now?
Yeah, I completely get it. You're absolutely right to bring like, here are heroes or here are characters or protagonists that have diametrically opposed views. It's what makes Civil War unanimously one of our like top 5 MCU movies of all time. Well, it's always like that Tony Stark and
I'm saying it's different because this is very clear who is in the wrong versus.
I agree with you. In like, but the point that you made of the fact that two heroes having different opposing opinions on how it should be done, and you can see both arguments is absolutely fascinating, right? Because from the Justice Society of America, of course, like we don't kill. There's privilege in that, right? There's the idea of like, yeah, we don't kill because we have the resources to take care of it some other way, which is Amanda Waller's like, oh, well, we'll hold you in artificial like animation or whatever, submerged, so you can't do anything. So I'm like, okay, well, is that any better than like killing someone? It's just, it does like it's weird to me. It's but especially when we're looking at occupation and all those kind of situations, like the discussion there was really, really good. It was fast and effective, but good.
Yeah, I think That's the good stuff. I think then it suffers from what I assume are, I know there's cuts because it had an R rating at first because of the
Right.
kill, but it does seem like other stuff. So like a thing that really stands out, and I saw Nando V Movies tweeting this scene out as well, or he retweeted a thread about it, which is they're doing the RoboCop thing of he wakes up, Seth Adam wakes up, and then he's like, "Oh right, like gunslinger stuff." Like that's kind of his very very short through line of connecting to the modern day. I know it's not the exact same in RoboCop. That's just him remembering his human ways of loving to watch that with his kid. But in this case, it's like you've got the kid. He was at the kid's house. He watched the Clint Eastwood movie, and so then he starts doing like gunslinger stuff when he's I'm like, but that happened like literally right after. It wasn't like he had time to process it or like integrate. It was just like, okay, cool, this is what we do now. And I think the other interesting choice was they made it so that it's not like he kept popping up like a Bucky Barnes throughout history. He really was gone for those millennia, I would assume.
They said 5,000 or something.
Yeah, like right. Like he was gone for thousands of years.
Yeah.
He wakes up, speaks his native tongue, and then like immediately has an American accent, even though he's surrounded by people without American accents.
So that was okay. I knew that was gonna come up. One of the things I thought most about that was like, okay, just the fact that he could speak English in itself was just like, okay, English wasn't established back then, so this is stupid. But the fact that, okay, he's got wizardry powers, maybe it's kind of like how like some people can like, oh, he could speak the all tongue or whatever, and it's just like those MacGuffins that kind of get written in. That was my excuse. It was like, oh yeah, one of the Shazam powers give him the ability to speak to anyone, whatever. Because when he does release that power, he speaks in his native tongue again, which I was like, oh, that's a cool touch. Like, that makes sense to me.
That's what I was thinking. Oh no, I don't think he ever met the wizards, did he? Or they probably put him away, but the wizards were speaking English. But
were they?
But that's only they speak English. I can't
remember that.
Djimon Hounsou speaking English throughout.
Yikes! Then there's nothing good about what I'm saying then.
No, but I'm saying I don't think he met them other than when they imprisoned him, because it's his son who got the powers and his son who passed them on. Correct. But maybe it's just if you have those powers, you speak English. My thing was accent. I was only talking about accent. I wasn't ever gonna jump on his ability to speak English.
Right.
I was just like, it's weird that he has an accent that the people who gave the powers wouldn't have, and nobody speaking around the time when he was alive would have.
Yeah. It's a very they were just like, okay, this is how he's going to deliver his lines in that like flashback origin scene. So just deliver your lines the same way and keep your accent. Whatever. I mean, like at that point, I was just like, if you are writing the instructions on how to release a prisoner on a tomb, then why not give him American accent at that point? Like, it was stupid. You're right. I'm like, whatever.
Yeah, I think that's the problem with the movies. There's too many times where you're giving the audience an out to just be like, oh, whatever. Then I guess they don't care. I don't care.
I mean, at this point, I don't know if it's just me being preconditioned to be like, oh, it's a DC movie. We're gonna have to meet it halfway somehow.
Sure, I'm not doing that, but I think
I do that, and I will acknowledge that bias for sure.
I don't think it's really productive for us to have the show and treat things like that. But like, I think that is a thing people do. I'm sure they're like, whatever, it's a DC movie or whatever.
Because you're right that nobody has mentioned that except for you, realistically. That it's like, hey, why does he have an American accent?
I mean, it doesn't really matter. But my bigger point is that you're doing things like shortening the period of him like actually like processing what it means to be a gunslinger.
Right. And the fish out of water thing, right?
You're just doing things that are making people be like, oh, okay. It doesn't really feel like I don't know how to put it other than there's just a way of doing these stories where you feel like, okay, well, that's the payoff to this. That was a nice journey of like going on with this, but it's like almost like immediate reactions to things other than their weird. Well, Teth Adam wasn't really the champion, which I
Yep.
Okay, like great.
Yeah.
I was confused. Like that was one where I was like, I'm more confused than interested in what the answer is. I was just like, what? How? Like,
Yeah.
what even happened there? I don't even get how he's the champion if his son got the thing. And I was like,
Yeah.
because at first I was like, oh right, when Shazam, as in Billy Batson, does it, he's turning into a vision of his dad. So oh, if Teth Adam is or Black Adam, I should say, is just Teth Adam's son projecting his dad's vision when he goes. I'm like, oh, that's cool that they brought that back around. But then the movie's like, no, it's actually Teth Adam and his son died. And I'm like, oh, okay. I don't really care, but like I thought it was more interesting the other way, and that doesn't make. And I don't even think that would make the movie better if that was, because I'm sure that comes with its own problems. It's just like I didn't really feel invested in that mystery. And it's something that drags on more than other things that could have been cool character building stuff.
I agree. They really, really put a lot into that, and like, what would be cool? And then like someone from the trailer department forgot to like think about that and just put like, oh, we'll put the Rock's dialogue in there about how he became Black Adam directly in a trailer, where he says like, oh, my son saved me so that I have these powers. And I'm like, the entire time they have that original scene where they're like they're digging up Eternium and all that kind of stuff, and you see the son's good heart and all those kind of things, and I'm like, do they believe that we don't believe, or that we don't know that is the Rock right now? Like that was the weird thing. You're right with the Billy Batson thing.
That the dad who was like, hey, I won't always be there.
Yeah.
No, I think they on purpose are like, this is the Rock's son.
Exactly.
They're not trying to trick you there. I just think that you could have had that in the trailer to mislead people, thinking like, oh, it's Teth Adam who becomes Black Adam. But really, it's just a metaphor when he says he brought me back as a god, because it's his image that is the god, not necessarily him. Like he still did die, but the son, when he says Shazam becomes that.
Yep.
I mean, it doesn't really matter. Like they still have, I think his name's Amon, the kid, like Adriana's son.
Yep.
To do the Billy Batson stuff, and they even get to do it on screen together. So I guess that's a bonus. But I just thought like, oh, this is something I don't really care about.
Yeah,
like it just seems weird for no reason.
You're right. To me, it was like, oh, let's just get to the scene where we see what actually happened.
Right, because they're just like, he's there, and then you never heard from him again.
Yep.
And I was like, is that the first time he was the champion? Then you realize, no, that wasn't even the first time he was the champion. Or sorry, that was the first time I guess Black Adam was.
Yeah.
But the way it's cut, you're like, it seems like he was gonna get killed. He said Shazam, and then he came back one time, and people were like, well, that's our hero. Even in that, or maybe they weren't like that, but that's how I felt until they showed like, oh no, he did a bunch of deeds, and it just pissed off the king, so the king killed his mom and dad.
Right.
And I'm just like, okay.
Yeah.
But yeah, I guess I don't even really know how to talk about this movie, because it's not really it has the two good ideas, which is Black Adam never wavers on killing the bad guy is the good idea. And I even like the moment where Hawkman, I almost said Hawkeye, Hawkman is like, don't kill those two guys. Like, I'm in it. And then he takes them up into the air, waits for Hawkman to get there, and drops them anyway. And I like that he did the first person to answer gets to keep their life, and then he just drops the first person to answer, and then drops the other guy anyway. And Hawkman's like, I told you not to kill them. He's like, I didn't. They're alive. They look alive to me.
Yeah.
He's like, I waited till you got there. You got to save them. I got the information. That was effective.
Yeah. And then I do like how Pierce Brosnan's like, yeah, he's got a point.
Yeah.
He that was very, very correct. He did exactly what you wanted. You just didn't like the fact that you had to come in and do something else. Hawkman wanted the lead. Hawkman wanted to take the lead, basically. Yeah, he wanted to take the lead for sure.
He wanted to say something and have Black Adam be like, "Oh yes, sir." Which wasn't gonna happen, and I appreciated that he never wavered on that, because ultimately he is gonna have to be an antagonist at some point. I don't really know where they go from. I mean, I know where they want to go based on based on the post credit, but
Yep.
I'm not really sure. Like, I mean, I've read up more, and people are saying that like it isn't really like Black Adam was that big of a part of Shazam's comic run
Right.
to a point. Like he was gone for like decades. He wasn't really there. But it just feels like they're so connected that to try and tee it up for a Superman thing, I'm like, I just don't know why you don't get those two together. It feels the same way that like up until the Zack Snyder cut, Joker and Batman never actually really interacted in any meaningful way.
Yeah, we're like always just told about what the
Like
the
in
fun
Suicide
times they've
Squad,
had.
they did.
Yeah, they
Suicide
did.
Squad it, which I was like, part of the reason I like Suicide Squad is like at least I'm getting Batman the way I want to see Batman. Like,
Sure.
they're not like, yeah, it's not really like in any meaningful way that they connect in canon, like in terms of cinematic canon.
I
Zack
agree.
Snyder cut doesn't count.
Yeah, so because the thing is, yeah, outside the movie, they have said, yeah, that is obviously where they're going to go. The Superman versus Black Adam thing in the sequel, whatever that might be, which is exciting. We'll talk about that more. But eventually, they have said, yeah, we're moving towards Shazam and Black Adam together in one movie at one point, which only makes sense. But I'm like, wait, so you're going to put Superman in the sequel to Black Adam, or Black Adam in the Superman sequel, and then have Black Adam be a part of Shazam 3, or Shazam a part of Black Adam 2. I don't get it, but that's their mess to clean up. Whatever, we'll figure it out.
Well,
it is messy.
We won't figure it out. Though.
No, we won't. We'll just sit
point.
there passively and then we'll critique it afterwards.
Yeah, I mean, what I mean is you set this up as like, yeah, he's the leader of Kahndaq. So either you want him to be, or I shouldn't say leader, he is the champion of Kahndaq.
Yes.
And like, so either you want him to like lose his way and be like, I don't really care about Kahndaq, and that's when he needs to be taken out. But like, you've already set it up. Like, going against him is a dick move because the people that champion him like the way he gets things done, and it gives them a sense of freedom that they didn't have before. So I don't really know why bringing in Superman it makes sense in terms of like, at least with pairing him up against Shazam, it doesn't have to be one is in the right, one is in the wrong. It could just be like, why the hell do you have the powers too? And you're just a stupid kid that doesn't know what he's doing. Which, when you see the trailer for Shazam 2, it feels like that's his whole thing. Is like, yeah, man, like I'm just a stupid kid. I don't really know that I'm having the effect I should have. So that makes sense to put them together with someone who's so sure of himself in Black Adam and someone who just doesn't fully feel like they're making a difference.
That's a good angle. Yeah, I like that.
The Superman thing, like, it's like,
it's just for it's just gonna be whoever
like, people
the director
want to
is.
see them fight, but I don't really understand how that makes sense. And it's not from, I mean, they'll figure it out or they won't. I just feel like I don't know why everyone's like, yes, because I'm just like, it seems like they should just leave it at, now we watch Black Adam's adventures in Kahndaq, and sometimes he like links up with the Justice Society.
Well, I mean, that people being like, yes, in the post-credit scene where we see Superman again. I think my excitement with that was like, oh, it's Cavill. They're not doing like the Shazam post-credit where you only see a suit.
I know, I'm beyond it's Cavill. Like, that's I don't begrudge people being excited about that. What I'm saying is that people are like, yes, it's gonna be Black Adam versus Superman. Just that.
I see.
Not the actor. Yes, the actor coming back. I understand people's excitement about that.
Right.
That isn't, like, I understand that. I mean, beyond that, like, once you get over that, wouldn't you rather just hear there's a Man of Steel 2 instead of, and now 100%. Now he's going to do another Versus movie.
100%. I would rather hear a Man of Steel 2, which is why I'm like, okay, is Black Adam in like Act 1 and then he's done in like that? Because all that really serves is like, okay, it's a pissing contest between the both of them in terms of who's strongest, and that's all basically everyone wants to see on screen is how that fight goes out.
But I mean, most people already know that Superman doesn't do well with magic, so it's like, it's not really that. Like, it's not really that much of a question mark.
And I agree with you on that, which is why I'm like, if anyone's actually thought through this fight and this character, it's not going to be that great. I mean, it's unless it's like, okay, Superman doesn't do well against magic, and we do get other members of the Justice League in there, which I'm like, cool-ish. But then it's not a Superman versus Black Adam fight anymore. It's like the same thing of the Justice Society fighting Black Adam in the first act. Like, that's all we're gonna get, which I'm like, okay, cool. We have different people with different powers doing the exact same thing. Whatever. I'm good with it. I'm glad people are going to be happy and excited about that, but I'm like, whatever. It can only be successful in about one act before you're just like, where's this going to go? Because it's just someone playing with action figures on screen. Like, oh, I'm going to hit you like this, and then I'm going to use this power against you. And it's just like, I want to see that, but that plays out better in a video game than a movie, I feel.
Yes, I agree with what you're saying. Did you want to go through any more characters? Like,
we gotta go through the characters for sure. So where do you want to start? Do you want to start with Teth Adam? Or like,
I don't even really know what else to say about him. He seems like a pretty like open and shut.
Yep.
He overdid it when he went to get revenge for his son and killed a bunch of people, but I can only assume. So the wizard had to come back and be like, oops, our bad, then put him in prison.
Yep.
And then he came out, and then he did a smaller version of that again with the bad guys, and they knew he was going to do that. And he hurt his son figure again.
Yep.
And then I guess he was just kind of like, yeah, I guess I won't do that again.
Yeah. And then he
two times the charm, I guess.
Yeah. And then he's like, okay, and I like his conclusion at the end of the movie where he's like, Kahndaq has its heroes already, pointing at the regular citizens and everything, one like that, ready to rebel, and people that have been fighting the oppression of the oppressive regime before he got there. And he goes like, Kahndaq doesn't need heroes, it needs a protector. And I'm like, that's a good way of establishing it. I'm like, cool, I like that for sure. The only thing about Black Adam in here was like, you know how the skinnyifying of The Rock was very, very effective, because I don't think I've ever been able to picture The Rock as anyone other than all those muscles on his body, and to like shrink him down. It wasn't like as effective as the Captain America Steve Rogers transformation where he's skinny and then poof up. It's not as effective of that, and I was a little bit disappointed about that, but it makes sense for the scene where he's like, okay, he's fighting without powers, he still has to have some level of strength, and he can't be emaciated in order to fight these Amanda Waller goons in that Antarctic prison. So it made sense, but I was just like, it's weird to see him skinny like that. It was really, really weird. That's all I got to say about that. Other than that, he did exactly what I thought he was going to do, and I enjoyed it. The Black Adam fights.
I don't have a problem with The Rock, so him doing what he did in this movie worked for me.
I agree.
I think people like to shit on him because he's popular, but
that's not really
not really my style.
That's not a good reason to shit on someone. That's just because they're popular. That's not a good reason.
I mean, that
jealousy.
seems to have become the new form of criticism, right? Like, something's popular, it's overrated. Something's popular, let me pick it up. It's like, okay. I mean, you could just talk about the stuff you actually like.
Yeah.
You have to put something down to make sense for something else to be good. But
it's true.
I'm sure it gets clicks. I'm sure it works.
It definitely gets clicks.
Yeah,
hate gets really, a lot more clicks than love, which is bullshit. But really I get it. I get it. People prey on insecurities.
We can move on to Hawkman, because I don't really think I feel like we've in a roundabout way talked through all the Teth Adam stuff.
Oh yeah, there's nothing more to talk about with Teth Adam, I think. But you're right, Hawkman is the natural, and the Justice Society of America is the next one progression. How do you think of Hawkman?
As I said, there's a ceiling to how interesting that character will be to me. So
true.
I feel like they did it. Like I don't have like a soft spot for him. I like that it was Aldous Hodge. I find that he did what he needed to do to make the character not feel like even like Cyclops, where you find kind of and I mean that in the movies, not in the comics.
Yep.
Like that he is the put upon leader, and he's got people that aren't paying attention to him, but it's not like you feel like he's a floor mat either.
Yep.
So I thought that was good, and I thought they picked the right actor to make that happen. I did think it was interesting that they had at least two visible. I mean, if you it's two visible in Cyclone and Hawkman, people who would have been part of colonized countries leading the charge and trying to do because I don't think that's I don't think that's I mean, it might be just by accident because they wanted, but I think that is, to me, that spoke to like it's not enough just to have diversity, and I'm assuming it was just a mistake, but I liked the idea that it still showed like, yeah, just because you have more black cops doesn't mean that cops are good, or just because you have more female prison guards doesn't mean that that's gonna work out for people, right?
Yeah.
And I think that was an interesting layer that may or may not be intentional. That when you have the JSA come in, at least Cyclone and Hawkman are visible minorities. I'm assuming Atom Smasher is Jewish because he had Henry Winkler as a uncle. And you would think that he would feel a way about, like coming in and thing, but I don't know. I think it was an interesting mix of people in the JSA to show that, like, yeah, that's a diverse team, but they're still doing shitty things, and that happens in real life. Just their very presence doesn't mean that this is an okay thing.
Yeah, I was thinking about that too, and I was thinking about, like, is this a purposeful reason for why they're not putting Dr. Fate a little bit more forward in that? I mean, obviously the relationship between Dr. Fate and Hawkman is probably one of the strongest kind of things going on within the Justice Society of America, but it's like I'm looking at the optics of like, wait, it feels like they're doing this on purpose. It feels like they are, but I can't tell.
Yeah,
because
I can't tell.
I couldn't tell, but it was just very, very interesting to me. But I'm like, are they trying to like wash their hands of saying something like, oh yeah, like, but it's still representing being generous, the system,
it does
right?
seem like a bunch of stuff got cut that was too biting.
Yep.
But I don't know. I also think that there's only so much that will happen in a big budget movie like this.
Yeah, true.
The Suicide Squad is a smaller budget.
Right.
It also didn't perform well, so there's that part of it. And I also saw that people on Reddit, again through Nando V Movies, retweeting stuff, were like, no, I like Black Adam because it doesn't have like a woke message, which I don't know how you could think that. Like, they didn't follow through on it, but it's still there.
Yeah. I mean,
they're like, yeah, Black Adam's not a soy boy, all this, and
it's not a soy boy. I've never heard that term before.
Oh, okay.
Oh, yeah, wow, like, that's hilarious.
But like, it's there. I think definitely you can't like start off in Conduct the way you do without having that message be there. But I thought that was an interesting way of making up the JSA.
Yep.
But yeah, in terms of Hawkman in particular, I like that he had the courage of his convictions. I don't think that he ever really put forward a compelling argument for doing things his way.
No,
he kind of just was like, But I also was like, I 100% believe that he's like, well, you're the bad guy, so we have to stop you. And also knowing that later on in the movie, we know that he knows when Black Adam gets going, people die. Like, it's not just, it isn't just, and it's because he can't control it. So it's not just like, we don't like that you installed your new leader. We want to install your new leader, which is still technically what they're doing.
Yes.
But there is the added thing of, which is why I was like, I mean, I guess it's still okay, there's the added thing of like, you installing this leader could still hurt you. It isn't just that we want to control this. It is that, like, specifically this leader you guys are trying to champion did get a bunch of people killed and will do it again, and does in the microcosm do it again. And like, Hawkman was right.
Yeah, but you're right. There's never a compelling reason other than we're Americans. Why Hawkman thinks he has the right to do what he does, right? There's never a compelling reason, and it's bullshit. Like, because to this point, one of my biggest things is the involvement of Amanda Waller here. When they put that in the trailer, I was like, oh, that's a lot more interesting. That's really, really cool. But then knowing what Amanda Waller is capable of and all that kind of stuff, it's just like, how isn't that like the same level of like fucked upness that Black Adams brings to the idea of like, okay, absolutes and whatever, and this is how we solve it, and any cost necessary, and we'll use people, manipulate, and all that kind of stuff. It's like on some level, there's two levels of bad going on there, right? Obviously, and he's representing something that he doesn't fully get, I think, where he's just like, hey, I need to do a job. Maybe that's it, but he just comes in with like, hey, this air of I know what's better for everyone else, and it pisses me off. It really does. I don't like it. But yeah. Dr. Fate though, he's a fun character.
Yeah, Dr. Fate is good. I guess it's gonna sound different now. I actually attached my mic an hour into this. Yeah, Dr. Fate is interesting. I was interested in the fact that he dies.
Yes.
I mean, that doesn't mean you can't use him again
Right.
for previous adventures, but just like, I don't know how much I'm supposed to care about that in a Black Adam movie, I guess. Like,
Yeah.
because they have scenes together, the three of them, like, because realistically, it's the three of them. It's Hawkman, Black Adam, and Dr. Fate. Like,
Yeah.
Cyclone and Atom Smasher don't really, because they've got their own like little romantic comedy going on.
Yeah.
Like, in between scenes, but like, I don't really like. He's still on the side that I feel like is wrong, and he's not doing much to stop them from doing the wrong thing. So I'm just like, I guess near the end he's like, yeah, we still have to bring Black Adam back. But like, I don't know. They're really trying to sell it on Dr. Fate and Hawkman are such good friends, and they don't want to lose each other.
Which, I mean, that does work successfully. I feel they did do a really, really good job of that.
Worked for you.
Yeah.
It seemed like, yeah, this works if this was a JSA movie. So I don't know why I think GSA. I think that we need to invest more time in the non-American characters.
100%. I do agree with that.
I mean, yeah. I guess Dr. Fate isn't technically speaking American, but he's working for that side.
Yeah. Cyclone. Visually cool. Just so cool to watch Cyclone do her thing, and just, I wish got more of Cyclone, but I mean, it's weird because you're right, that little rom-com on the side with both of them. Like, we got more Cyclone, we would have got more Atom Smasher awkwardly flirting, which is gonna be like, oh yeah, I do not want that like really spotlighted in this movie. It's just gonna pull away beats from everything, right? So
yeah, like they're the new guys, and I felt like it would be one thing if they were led to question what their veterans were thinking about the situation. Like, if they're like, well, I mean, they has point, but they're kind of just along for the ride, and they don't really go on any journey other than they have crushes on each other, Atom Smasher and Cyclone. But yeah, I mean, I like Cyclone's visuals. I don't know how effective she was.
Yeah, she wasn't that effective realistically, unless we're looking at.
I mean that for Atom Smasher too. There is the point where it's like, okay, we pinned Black Adam down, so he has that one moment. But like, even that scene where he's like running the wrong way, I was like, oh, this doesn't really seem like a comedy, so I don't know why you did that to him.
Yeah, that wasn't great. And the idea of like him, like, yeah, Atom Smashing burns calories and all that kind of stuff, and he's eating like fried chicken, like a bucket of fried chicken.
Being like, well, we need to get rid of Ezra and the Flash, so we need someone else that needs to eat all the time.
Yeah.
Maybe. I don't know like what version of the draft kept all the humor, but it wasn't this version. But it seems like some scenes still snuck in or slipped in.
I agree.
Of that humor, I don't mind. I did mind he was running the wrong way, because It's not
Yeah,
really a character beat. Like
that's
I already
yeah.
know that he's not like this is his first time.
Mhm.
Why don't I let me see him interact with people like and I can see that it's like he's really green other ways than like oh he ran the wrong way.
Mhm.
I don't get that beat.
Well, I
Uh
mean, like for it, I guess they needed a comedic doormat, and giving it to the newbie is a lot easier than anything else, right? So
yeah,
that
but they
made
already
sense to
have the
me.
little kid who's
I
doing
get
comedic
that.
things. I
I
don't
get that.
my greater point is you needed to focus more on the people from Kondak.
I completely agree with that.
So if we're taking time out from that, it should be good stuff and not just yeah, it's a comedy beat. You like
Yeah.
comedy.
It's like, yeah, let's have a laugh here. He's running the wrong way. That's funny, right? No. It's like, why? We know he's new. He's no boundaries, no like he's trying to like be inappropriate with people. It's just I did like the whole like Hawkman's like me, you, we gotta talk. Me and you the whole time. I'm like,
Yeah,
that
but then
was
they never talk,
really
and I
I
was like,
know.
we did that beat twice.
Yeah, but the beat was just funny. But the fact that they didn't, it was just like, but not that I wanted to. Honestly, it's just like
But
I
what
don't
I'm
want to
saying
watch
is,
Hawkman scold him.
if they had that conversation, you could show that Adam Smasher actually has a point of view instead of
No,
just
which is true.
yeah. So I
Yeah.
would want to see that actually. I would
Okay,
like to
that's
see
fair.
if we are forcing these four characters into a
Mhm.
story that doesn't necessarily need them because eh, you've got Intergang and Jafar from Aladdin. Like I don't really like you don't necessarily need these four people.
Yeah.
If you wanted to have it be like, well, there's some heroes that try and they don't get along with Black Adam, fine.
Mhm.
But like that's my thing is like you have these characters, what is their journey?
Mhm.
Because that has to feel realistic, but also how are they serving the story? And to make sure that there's more voices and that it seems like the stories events have effects on the characters.
Mhm.
It would have been interesting if we actually see that Adam Smasher's not that committed to this because he actually sees the point of what
Mhm.
the people from Kondak are saying.
Yep.
Him and Cyclone could have been that.
Yeah, they could have had some vocal opposition towards a lot of what Hawkman was doing for sure, and the points he was putting
Yeah,
out there.
because they're fresh eyes. They
Yep.
can be like, I don't know. I feel like
Yeah.
you might have been operating on a different way of life. Like that
Yeah.
doesn't really apply right now.
Yeah, we could have gotten like a line from Cyclone and be like, this reminds me of a textbook I read back in this course about colonization, and I
Yeah,
think we might be doing that right now. So maybe we kind of listen to the people and what they want instead
yeah.
of fucking just
Because
coming
then
in
at the
here.
end, Adam Smasher's like, I thought we were a good team, and I'm like, so he changed it because he was like, yeah, Black Adam's a good team, but I'm like, you would have said that anyway because you're new, and you
Yeah,
would have been like, yeah, we should have more team members. It doesn't really feel like he processed what was going on with
he did not.
Black Adam and what Black Adam's issue was.
I agree with that. He was very, very background character, and that's hard for a big character. Whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's Cyclone and Adam Smasher to me was that like a missed
Mhm.
opportunity, but visually cool. I mean, it's hard, right? Because Adam Smasher operates like Ant-Man, but without seemingly any other of the cool things Ant-Man can do,
Yes.
or Giant Man, however you want to put it.
Mhm.
Like it's just like uh okay, he gets big, and then again, they have that one moment where I'm like, okay, that is the reason to have Adam Smasher. He's holding Black Adam down.
Mhm.
But then I just felt like it didn't really work any other way.
Mhm.
And Cyclone, interesting. I'd love to see more of Cyclone. I do think that's a very interesting
Mhm.
character. Um, just visually, she's got a lot going on, and
Yep.
I just don't really know like what she does. Like I didn't like, yeah, she
Aside,
controls
yeah,
wind, but like when did that help them? I guess she threw some spears at people with wind.
yeah, she tried to trap him. It was a distraction more than anything else. I mean, it
I
served
mean,
the
the
purpose
trailer
that it
made it
did.
seem more effective than what it actually happens in the movie.
Fair. Yeah, you're absolutely right about that. But I mean, I think a lot of what happened to was like, oh, when Amanda Waller was like, "You're gonna need a team," and then like a Hawkman does this whole like, "Oh, there's this person, and then there's this person, and then there's this person." I'm like, yeah, but you're talking about how smart and how brilliant she is, but that never really comes across throughout the whole thing, aside from the fact that she's constantly doing background computer stuff. It's never like, oh, I figured out this secret text means. Well, actually, no, that's she and
She
the
did
professor.
help Adriana.
Yeah, like she did help. Like, oh, okay, yeah, I can use this Photoshop software to reverse it and all that kind of stuff, like you want it to be.
And I don't know what
that.
her, but she did help Adriana's brother when she was like, "Yeah, here we like recreated the tissue. He'll be up and running in like a day."
Right. So kind of like a Shuri character in this sense, but
I don't know if that's just because she knew how to use this equipment on the ship that was already going to do that, or if that was like her actual like resourcefulness on the ship.
I think it was just her knowing how to use the stuff on the ship, because the ship is Hawkman's, right? They well established
it's got
that
his logo everywhere. Yeah,
it's his stuff. So it's like, well, obviously he had the medical equipment. It was there. It was that she did it. So
that doesn't take. Like she still executed. I just didn't know if they were trying to be like, out of the two of these, he's the dummy and she just is capable, and so that's how she did it. Because that's when they have their conversation about like, hey, you can change your atomic like structure and you still get amazed by the world. Which again, that seemed like a way to go of like his ability to actually be impressed by things instead of being a jaded hero could have gone somewhere, but they didn't really do anything with that.
That's fair. I didn't want that to distract more than it already did, but
it wouldn't distract. That's not a distraction. That is actually adding to the conversation of the movie.
Right. I wasn't that interested in the whole Atom Smasher thing, because I'm like, I knew that they weren't going to take it anywhere realistic, or actually no, not new. I was disappointed it didn't take it anywhere further, so I just kind of like, that sucks for Atom Smasher realistically, and Cyclone, because I'm like, it kind of seemed like the way the X-Men introduced new characters, like, oh, we have Psylocke in this movie and it's only 2 or 3 seats. It's they didn't get enough spotlight, and you're right, that could have been really, really interesting to see from Atom Smasher's point of view, but they dropped the ball on that. I'm okay with them dropping the ball on this more so than the actual good stuff with the people of Kahndaq and all that. Like, them dropping the ball on that was more egregious to me, or not fully exploring that, I should say, not dropping the ball. The Atom Smasher thing, it was good, I guess. It was not terrible, but yeah. Let's talk about Ishmael, Gregor, or Sabak, the leader of the
Jafar.
Yeah.
So he
who he is actually he is Jafar, right?
Yeah.
He plays Jafar. Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Is he also the actor that plays that guy that Batman interrogates in Dark Knight? No? Okay. He looked like that at first. Anyway, either way.
No, that's Polka Dot Man.
Okay. Oh, yeah, that's right.
So Dave Dastmalchian.
Yeah.
So this character, he was interesting in the beginning, I thought. Yes. Like when he's like placed, or not, maybe he is just tired of the conversation, because you think like they're in the car and it's the 3 guys at first, because Adriana has to hide. Her brother is driving. There's a guy in the middle with like the mustache type thing, and then Ishmael. And like, it seems like, oh, you got to watch out for Mustache, because he's asking all these questions. He seems like, and I liked the way that Ishmael was playing it, and just like he's like, it's this, all right? Does that make you feel better? Like, let's move on. And then immediately they're like, nah, he's the bad guy, and I'm like, oh, okay. Like, I thought we would tease this out a bit more, but sure, whatever.
Yeah.
And then he's kind of then they're like, you see that he's working for Intergang to get what he needs, and then he kind of in a very quick succession, like once he gets the crown and gets killed, which he wanted to, because that's the whole thing. Everyone's operating off the false thing of life is the best path to death, but it really is death is the best path to life. He wants to get killed by Black Adam. He goes to hell, and then there's just this like thing of like, yeah, hell, it was like, yeah, like let's release hell on Earth. And I'm like,
Yeah.
what?
And hell needs our champion now. It's just, where the hell did that come from?
Yeah, I was just like, what? That was not really properly set up. Like it showed that the king could be controlled by demons, but it didn't
Yes.
really. I don't know. Anyway,
I completely agree with you on that, because if the original king, or like in that original flashback scene, was like, oh, and everyone was afraid of Eternium because it would have unleashed this prophecy or something like that. If there was some hint of something actually bigger happening, but it's just like, okay, you get the crown and it would have been invincible, and there's no actual connection to that. We were like, okay, does the fact that he goes to hell and turns into something else, I'm like, wait, what the hell is happening right now? It just came out of nowhere. Didn't like it. Didn't care for
it. Yeah. Another thing of like, initially it sounds like I'm nitpicking, but what I'm trying to get at is these greater issues of the movie of like the quick succession of events doesn't really give time for you to process, for the characters to process. And so it just feels like I read a review. It's funny. I see where they're coming from. I don't fully agree, but I read a review which said this movie isn't necessarily a movie. It's more like the YouTube compilation of Black Adam scenes.
That's an interesting way of putting it. I can see how that would be true.
Because yeah, like there are, as I kept harping on the Atom Smasher thing, is like no one is truly like processing information in this movie. Like there's very clear cause and effect, but like to the extent of like, yeah, he killed him, so then he went to hell, and then he brought hell on Earth. There isn't a lot of this character's actions affected this other character's actions, so that they made this choice, or they took in this information and they made it. It's just like, well, we need to get to the next thing, so this happens.
Yep.
So I understand the idea of like, yeah, it's not a truly like well thought out, written out thing. It's kind of like, and this scene happens, this scene, and then we put it in order. Here you go. Here's your collection of scenes from Black Adam.
I mean, I see how that is 100% the case. The transitions are jumpy as hell. They're jumpy, very, very jumpy. That's a good critique of it. Yeah. But that, yeah, I hate when final act villains come into play, because I'm just like, oh, all we're doing is just doing the action figure thing. Like, it's not a compelling fight at that point.
The king's eyes like going black, and I was thinking like, oh, okay, well, like maybe Adriana gets taken over. Like I still was like, there's still the idea that you like someone's gonna get taken over and turn into a demon. That part they teased. I don't think they did a good job of like teasing it throughout, but there is a scene where you see the king's eyes go black. There is a scene where she's reading it and stuff glows, and you're like, oh, she's got it's like the Ring. She's got to be careful around that, like, or else it'll corrupt her, right? I mean, that isn't actually the case, apparently, but like I thought that's where they were going with it. It's more just like the idea that you like just introduce hell because he goes to hell, and then they're like, great, you're our champion, like go back and unleash. And then so now there's like demons they have to fight off, and right away Adriana's like, oh yeah, he controls like the demons of hell now, so like we got to deal with that. And I'm like,
yeah, that made no sense to me. I'm like, okay, cool. like yeah, sure, why not? And let's, these demons of hell, they're getting beaten up by pipes and getting destroyed by pipes by everyday citizens. It's like they had no special powers or anything like that. It's just like, this is a pretty weak army. I would assume that the army allows to reassemble, reanimate, and keep going. Maybe that's their power. But
that's
like
the thing, and I think it's more about getting the population's mind around like, you know, we can take up arms and fight for ourselves as well.
Yeah, we don't have to be oppressed anymore. We're liberating ourselves, and this is like we're a part of that process.
But it's like,
from hell on earth.
I don't know about the political parts of this, but yes,
well, yes,
at least at the very least they can liberate themselves from that.
Yeah,
I think that's the idea. But as we talk it out, it doesn't really land.
You're right.
But it is, you could kind of get the idea of what they're going for. I think that makes sense to have it be people being like, oh, okay, we're not going to be afraid of the boogeyman anymore.
Yeah,
and not have it be something that genuinely could just overpower them and have them feel just as hopeless as they did before.
Yeah, because the ultimate issue with this is like, okay, Black Adam was so effective at taking out Intergang in that like second act where like Hawkman's like, all right, this is how we're gonna do it, and he's just gone and he's just killing a whole bunch of
Mm-hmm.
people. Like after that scene, you're like, well, there's no more goons anymore. There's no more henchmen or whatever you want to call them to
Mm-hmm.
fight. Intergang's essentially dead except for the one guy. So you need to now go to hell, recruit an army, and then have these powers, and then you're just like, I don't care about this at all. This is stupid. Like all of
I
it's
think
stupid.
you're right to the extent that what should have happened is like I can't imagine that was all of Intergang. Like maybe they just get more resources, but this time you see people actively fighting back instead of being like, oh, what are we gonna do about it? I think you're right. It's weird to bring it into like hell because as we kind of got to the conclusion too pretty quickly, like sure you could fight off those Hellions, but then that's just clearing the way for I think we saw Italian flags at one point, like Italy, to come back and be like, okay, great, we don't have to deal with the demons anymore. We're back to occupying you and stuff.
Yep.
So I think it would have made sense for it to be an actual presence from Earth to come back and try again, even though Black Adam, because that realistically, that is the idea. It's like you can't just be like, well, we need the champion or else everything is lost.
Yeah.
Because that was the effective thing of Teth Adams' son was he throws up the rock and then everyone's like, right, like we did it, we're together.
Yeah.
And they fought together and they lost that when they lost him. Then they were back to like, well, I guess yeah, we're just back to being occupied.
Yeah.
And so the events of the movie should have been that, like, yes, you can have someone that like makes people afraid to try to come into Kahndaq, but that doesn't mean people will never try. So it's on the whole country to be like, we fight together with Black Adam. Like it's not on him to just do this by himself.
Yes.
Yeah, I do think that would have been a better resolution than they fought off demons from hell.
Yeah, because they even make a point of saying like, okay, where they're doing that scene that I talk about where Black Adam just like, and I will say his action scenes are a lot of fun to watch. There's that is one thing I like about this movie a lot. His action scenes are great. Where they make a point of saying like, oh, that's their biggest hideout, or like that's like all this kind of stuff. I'm like, okay, well, you still have satellite locations where you can effectively bring in those people and still have the people of Kahndaq fighting against the Intergang and all that kind of stuff. And obviously Intergang being overpowered with their friggin' Eternium bikes that are going crazy and all that kind of stuff. And it's not a fair fight. I get that, but it's the visual, the idea of no, we're not fighting back against super demon stuff that's coming out of nowhere. We're fighting back against a very real evil and threat that we've been facing under oppression for thousands and thousands of years, right?
Yeah.
That's what I wanted to see. And what I saw was a stupid Evil Dead, like bone animation kind of thing coming up and being like, oh, we're going to hit them with pipes. And then the brother being like, I know how I die, so I'm going to be hero of the day right now. It's the weirdest thing. I like that he got that moment, but it's weird that it's like, oh, you healed from that gunshot wound that fast. Okay.
But we already talked about how he did that. That was Cyclone's intervention.
No, I get that. The nanobots, I get that.
Yeah, that's not weird.
But
that's her being like, this is what I did. That's why he's able to be in the movie still.
I get all of that. The point I'm trying to make is I don't like the freaking Hell Army and the freaking.
That has nothing to do with his gunshot, so I don't know why you.
I'm just ranting at this point. Yeah. I definitely am ranting.
But what I would say is, I also feel like when I say it should have been, I'm agreeing with you. It should have been Intergang. It doesn't mean I think then it would play out exactly the same way, because obviously I understand that they had imprisoned Black Adam again, and the only reason Hawkman and Dr. Fate would be like, we need to get Black Adam back, is if there's a huge like hell demon that's coming. I understand that. So I'm saying maybe you don't write yourself into that corner.
Yeah.
And because I think it should have been that, like, well, I already said it, but I just wanted to make sure that people knew that I didn't just think, oh, and just would have went like that, because yes, I understand how they wrote it so that it makes sense that it becomes something so big that the heroes think, well, we have to bring in the necessary evil or else this isn't going to go well.
Yeah. I think I think what I genuinely thought was going to happen in this movie was that uh, the Black Adam we know, the Rock here is was actually going to do the exact same thing that his son did to save him with the kid. That's what I thought was going to happen, and the kid was going to turn into Black Adam,
Right,
like
the
looking
vision of,
exactly
yeah,
the same of him,
his
but like
father
now
figure.
pure of heart. Like now Kandok actually has the champion. Like that's what I thought was going to happen.
Mhm.
And to me,
I'm
I was
glad
like,
it
I
didn't.
wouldn't have. Yeah, I'm glad it didn't. But I'm like, that would have been one of the scenes that would have been compelling about that fight of like, oh yeah, this kid who's amazing on this skateboard apparently and just able to dodge all these kind of military things finally gets shot, and then Black Adam's like, no, I will protect you. Say this, say my word, Shazam, and then he does it, and then Black Adam gets the Rock gets killed in his human form. Like that's what I thought was gonna happen. I'm glad they didn't go that way.
Yeah.
But that's I'm just writing the movie for them at this point.
Yeah. I'm glad that did not happen.
Yes. Because I was worried the entire time watching that third act. I was like, oh, please don't do this. But yeah, they didn't. So I'm happy.
They didn't. All right. Well, is there anything else you want to talk about? I think we already talked about the Superman thing earlier.
Yeah. I mean,
apparently he works for Amanda Waller. And
well, I don't know if that's true or if he called in a favor or like it's just that I do like seeing Harcourt again in that cameo.
You can word it however you want.
Yeah.
She can call on his services.
Yeah.
It's not like whatever the situation is, if she asks for his help, she can get it.
Yeah, because I mean the thing about Superman is that they're very, very clear that because he landed in America that he represents American values, right? I mean that's the whole point of like the Red Sun Superman being like if he landed in Russia, he'd be like this instead. So I think that makes a lot of sense for Amanda Waller being like, hey, we're still American values and all this kind of stuff and resemble peace and whatever and that all that kind of nonsense.
Maybe
so
but I don't think that works for the wording that they used.
Fair.
I think his whole thing was no one on this earth could do something. So I think this thing they set up, you're not wrong. Obviously, that's what he stands for, right? Like the American value. They did change it in this. They didn't say the American way. They just said truth, justice, and something. But comic book readers know that he stands in for American values.
Yes, he does.
I think what they set up though was you have a different value system than America. We don't like that, and you think that you're better than everyone else here, so we'll get someone from somewhere else and they won't have as much compunction about beating the shit out of you. Is what they set up. I understand the historical thing, but for me it was more like, okay, then we'll get someone else from somewhere else and maybe they feel a different way and then they'll get you. But anyway, that's the Superman thing. I'm glad that Henry Cavill is back.
It was cool seeing that like prison area where like Black Adam wasn't the only person.
A lot of people there.
Yeah, they had a lot of people. Like I like that one really, really giant one too. Like there was one that was I don't know if that's supposed to be like Darkseid or something like that. But or whatever it is. I or no whatever his name was in the Batman versus Superman. But it was cool to be like, ooh, what's in all of those? But I mean, that's cool obviously not gonna. Yeah, they're not really gonna pay that off. I kind of wish there was like, that's like Poison Ivy or something like that. I was really hoping you'd see some rogues from some other things to be like, okay, because I mean, if Snyder's gonna do the whole like Robin suit and all that kind of stuff, then they might as well have been like, oh, okay, here's Mr. Freeze in this suspended animation. You might as well.
Well, I mean, they have the option now. It's not off the table. It does seem like from The Rock himself on his Twitter and what people have been saying in trades is this is technically the beginning of the new DCEU.
Yeah, phase one, they're calling it.
Well, I don't think I ever saw that specifically.
I've heard him say this is phase one, and I'm like,
I know what he said. What I'm talking about is what's written down because that's what you know is actually coming from the studio, which is this is the beginning. We're gonna go from here.
Yeah.
So, I don't think it behooves them to be like phase one. You know, like MCU. I don't think they would do that. I understand how on the fly he might say something like that. I don't think that is officially what they're calling it. I think they're trying to be smart about like here we're setting up because phase 1 implies that nothing else matters from before that. But what he's saying is this is where we like you can start counting on the continuity from here.
Yes. I think that is what he's saying. I hope that's what he's saying. I don't know. Walter Hamada just left as the CEO, and I'm like, sure, whatever. They still haven't found a Kevin Feige like person yet, except unless you want to say like, oh, that's technically The Rock now, because The Rock does pull people together and he gets shit done, and all that kind of stuff. So, but he's not the CEO calling all the shots. He's just like, hey, let's connect with this team and make sure that this happens so that we can make more jobs for everyone else. Which I'm like, cool. I like that part of it. But we'll have to see if they're saying that this is a new era of the DC movies with interconnectivity and plot lines that make sense and all that kind of stuff. Then I'm all for it. Like, let's see it, especially if James Gunn is attached to that secret DC project, in something like that. So we'll see. We will see.
All right, let's rate this movie. What do you give it?
I'm giving it a 7.
Excellent. I'm gonna give this a 6.
Yeah.
It is everything we just talked about for the last hour and a bit.
Yeah.
I think there's missed opportunities, but I don't think it's like a piece of shit like other people think. It's just it's a serviceable movie. It's fun to watch. It definitely, I think, went up a mark based on me seeing it in a theater. But I definitely can see how if I saw this at home, it would have been lower.
I completely agree with that. Seeing it on an IMAX screen was like, I'm having a lot of fun right now. And that's what this movie allowed me to do. It let me have so much fun with it. Like I said, the visuals of how everything was doing. And I even like that like final kind of like, we're going to recreate the image from the comic book where he's sitting on the throne. And then, I like that dedication to it. I like those small little things. And it was an overall fun and enjoyable movie. It wasn't a train wreck at all. So I really liked it. Not like loved it, but it's going to be fun to watch again.
Good. Great. Well, thank you very, very much, everybody, for listening. We are part of the That Shelf Podcast Network with other great shows like Black Hole Films, Bad Game Movies, Changing Reels, a whole bunch of great things. So go to thatshelf.com. You'll find our show, those shows, more shows. And then you can go to tdfeverything.com/goldrotten for older episodes of our show. We're on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, iHeartRadio, Radio Public, a bunch of places. So please rate, review, subscribe, follow, share with your friends, all that stuff. And get the word out about our show. And thank you very much. We'll be back next week.
Cheers.
Bye-bye.
This has been a TDF Everything production, brah.